Hello. How is everyone tonight? This is a impromptu, but it is a kind of a outline that I started doing probably 6 months ago. So I'm not super familiar with what I'm going to read, but I basically placed articles of a list of serial killers or offenders where their family members are speaking. I think that the whole guilty by association is BS. Although some, it does end up being that way. I feel like it's the exception to the rule. And yeah, so we're just going to kind of go over some of these different serial killers. I think we're going to start with James Bergorf. I'm not sure how to say his name. Hey, Willie D, how are you? Hey, Chris. Hey, Jill. Digger Dave. GP and Marbles. Crime Geek. Good to see you guys. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Didn't really give any warning, and I definitely wasn't ready to go live when I thought I would be. Like 2 minutes later, I hadn't even set up anything, and I forgot that I didn't hang my laundry up. Oh, I feel really weird. I don't like this lipstick. I thought I did. I was trying new colors today. I went out and in public earlier today, and I was trying new lipstick colors. So it's just like old and red. And I don't think I like it. I probably shouldn't wear it out in public. Hey, Gray Pill Podcast. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on the other night. Go check his channel out. We had a panel of just a group of really great guests and able to have differences of opinions, but respect each other. And I thought it was I think there's a lot of channels that need to kind of, if you want to adult, of ways that you can disagree respectfully with others and be open to hearing others' opinions. And I felt like the YouTube live that he did I think it was was it Gray Pill? When was it? It was last week, at some point last week. But he so graciously invited me on, and there was 4 other guests besides myself. Well, 3, including him. But yeah, I had such a good time, and it was a learning, when you can engage in something as a chatter or be on a panel as a creator. I don't feel like I'm a creator because I just go live because I can't download anything to this old computer. But yeah, I think that is a point positive, Hey, thank you, Mayo. Yes, I am coming to movie night. So the movie is Mayo's pick, and it is what's it called? He sent it to me. Anyways, they're starting on LA and the Porch Session with Uncle Tom. They're doing movie nights on Rumble, which I gotta tell you, I'm gonna be a holdout. I do not want to have a Rumble. I don't want to have any more social media. My children are grown, so I don't need to stalk them online anymore. And I just don't like it. I don't have a real Facebook that is like personal. I don't ever, well, I have one, but I'm locked. I can't get on it. And I mean, look at my name on Discord. It's Cold Truh. And I can't figure out how to get back into my own profile to add the T, I am just going to have to say no more. True romance. So LA sent me that, and I was like, oh my gosh, Mayo's a romantic. Because I was not allowed to watch 90s movies. So this is a movie that I've never seen, didn't know anything about it. I just, by the title, True Romance, I was thinking that Mayo was a romantic at heart, but that is not the case. It does look good, though. It looks really good. Yeah. It's the Tarantino movie that no one knows is a Tarantino movie. How is it to get away with murder? Huh? Hey, Justice Served Daily. Good to see you. Okay. Hey, James. I'm going to jump right in because I'm not going to be on long. I think they are starting at 9 or 9:15, the movie night, and I want to go to that. So we're just going to do one and then kind of make it a series that I'll be able to put out over the course of however I can. I work, I do this on the side. This is, like I'm going on a trip next week. I'll be gone all week. And I'm going to try to go live from Denver, but I'm not making any promises. It is what it is. I do it when I can or when I want to, but I think this is something that we can read and learn about them and then glean what we see fit. And then maybe we can do, after I've done a few of them, maybe I can, invite some guests on and we can actually discuss what it's like to be a serial killer's family member, loved one from their perspective. God, I can't imagine, And what prompted me to want to start this series is obviously everybody knows I'm from Indiana. Grew up hanging with my family that lives in Carroll County and Clinton and Boone and all down 421 and 39. So the Abby and Libby case, the double homicide in Delphi, Indiana, and the alleged perpetrator, Richard Allen, and his wife is what prompted me to research this. I started with Gary Ridgway, whose wife is, there's a documentary out, and it is just, it's very raw, and it's very, I think there's so much to glean from it, but he's going to be one that we're going to do kind of later on. So without further ado, let's look at these serial killers' wives and girlfriends. So the first one is Terry Lamone. She was the longtime girlfriend of Sean Gillis. And she testified. Let me share my screen. Now, let me know if you can hear it every time. I never know. I don't know why it's so hard for me to remember if that button is clicked on or off, but let me know if you can hear. Can you still hear me? Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I bet you would. Classic Ruby. It's the news. I can't remember her full video title, but she is a evolutionary psychologist or specialized in evolutionary psychology as a psychologist. So that's pretty cool. All right, take these comments down and let's look at Terry Lamone. Former girlfriend, live-in girlfriend testifies. This was published on July 23rd of 2008. Baton Rouge. The third day of Sean Vincent Gillis' trial has come to an end. Wednesday, FBI witnesses described as expert gave key testimony, and there were even some tears shed from Gillis himself. Gillis is accused of the 2004 strangulation death of Donna Bennett Johnston. Late in the afternoon, a specialist with the Federal Bureau of Investigation out of Washington, D.C., confirmed that Sean Vincent Gillis's jailhouse confession letters were actually written by Gillis. Those letters are just part of many pieces of evidence the jury will use to decide if Gillis is actually guilty of first-degree murder. Gillis actually broke down and cried when his former live-in girlfriend, Terry Lamone, described how she still has a relationship with Gillis's mother. Lamone also cried when she told Gillis that she had and still does love him. She also said she couldn't believe that he was capable of doing what he had done. The couple lived together for 10 years. Jurors have already heard from the accused serial killer in a manner of speaking. They played tapes of Gillis's original interview with police. On tape, Gillis said he heard complaining about crime in Baton Rouge and talking about why tire prints from his vehicle were found near Johnston's body. Prosecutors in this case say they are ready to call their last 4 witnesses to the stand Thursday. We'll keep you updated. That was really just the last article I wanted to read. See, I should have gone over the stock. She was on a, this is her. No, I don't want to go to Facebook. Sorry, guys. I don't know why I... Oh, they're not going to like that. Sean Vincent Gillis raped, mutilated, and murdered 8 women in Louisiana between 1994 and 2004. Hold on, just... Okay, it looks like you guys can hear me. So, Dead of Night investigates his crimes and talked to his girlfriend at the time when he started killing. Gillison's first victim was 81-year-old Ann Bryan, who lived at an upmarket retirement home in Baton Rouge. He sneaked into the home and attempted to rape Bryan, but when she made too much noise, he slit her throat and stabbed her to death in a frenzied attack where he inflicted more than 50 knife wounds. Across the road from the home was where 36-year-old single mom Terry Lamone worked the graveyard shift at a convenience store. She had just started dating Gillison the same month he killed Bryan, and would end up living with the serial killer as he went on to kill another 7 women over the next 10 years. On the show, Lemoyne explains that working at night has a certain element of risk attached to it, saying there are dangerous people, and that is the time when they come out. At the time, she had no idea that one of those people was the man she loved, and that whilst she was working nights, he was out prowling for his next victims. The hallmark of the Gillisons' relationship was the hallmark of Gillis's killings. Man, what is wrong with me? Were the mutilations and ritualistic way he often posed the bodies. Many of the women had their breasts slashed, and hands or arms were often removed in what were truly horrific murders. During an interview with the press, Limon gave this warning: never think you know everything about anybody. Never. In February 2004, 43-year-old Donna Bennett Johnson was raped and murdered. Her body was badly mutilated with her breast slashed, with a tattoo on her thigh cut out. This murder proved to be Gillis's last, as the tire tracks left near the scene of the crime turned out to be fairly unique. Only about 90 sets had been bought in the area, and DNA sample taken from Gillis matched that found at several of the other crime scenes. When police arrested Gillis, they found numerous photos of the women he had mutilated and murdered, as well as body parts that he'd kept as reminders of the killings. Gillis was found guilty of 3 murders, pleading guilty to second-degree murder of another woman, and later confessed to killing another 4. He was given a life sentence and is currently serving time in the Louisiana State Penitentiary. Dead of night, the graveyard. Yeah. Can you imagine? Okay, like you're just off working nights. Otherwise, from what I remember from the documentary I watched about her, they had a very a good relationship. Here he is off while she's at work, just killing, not just killing, but brutalizing and torturing and mutilating 8 different women. Only one was done prior to her moving in with him. And he's storing these body parts. Where? There was another serial killer that his wife was just I think it's Brudos. His wife was just not allowed to go into the garage. I don't know if it was coercive control or just flat out fear, or maybe she wanted to do this, but she cleaned it naked in high heels because he has a fascination with feet. I'll plug my computer in. And he was bringing the victims into his garage area. And it's just man, how did she not know? But so many times we hear that they really did not have a clue. And what is that? Where does that stem from? I think a lot of it is, as humans, innately, we not everyone, but it's, you just don't think of something so outside of the realm of possibilities for your mate. I obviously in true crime we do, but overall, people are trusting, maybe too trusting. And when you can be a chameleon, like a lot of serial killers are, you can mimic a normal relationship and, the normal relationship roles that one would take inside of a individualistic relationship. And it's pretty scary how we can be manipulated. And it's not just intelligent, it's not just dumb people that are manipulated. Every time you turn on the TV, you're at risk of being manipulated, and we have to be really on guard. And I think a lot of people just think that you got to be weak-minded or, just dumb in order to get into these relationships that you have no idea that your partner is a serial killer. Like, duh, you should have seen some, there had to have been signs. Well, of course there's signs, but those signs are in hindsight, and that's 2020. But as you're living day-to-day life, in a relationship with someone that you have grown to trust over time, in a lot of these relationships, again, we're talking about the chameleon type serial killers. Like, oh, that's weird. There was he didn't come home, or there was like a spot of blood in his car, or, just any little thing. He was really into watching the case play out in the news. But as you are in those moments, the last thing that you are thinking is that that's your significant other. It's just not in the normal psyche of humans to go right to that, of like, oh my gosh, he's got to be a serial killer. Now for me, it's a different story, and probably for you as well if you're into real crime. But the normal human is not. There are going to be, they're not going to want to accept it. And it's going to, a lot of times, like Gary Ridgway's wife, it literally took her sitting through the court and her hearing him say his admission of guilt in court before she really got it. She was not one to want to watch the news. She did not keep up on policy. That just was not in her nature. She just wanted to be a loving wife, a stay-at-home wife, tend to her home, tend to her husband, and tend to their meals. And that's what she wanted. And Gary Ridgway was excellent at being her throwback gentleman. And he would call. He was very attentive. He was very affectionate and loving. They went on trips. He has a son. He was kind to her. He did little things for her. He would, call her if he was going to be late, which was really, he was out, murdering, but he was respectful of, her and if she would be to worry about him. And so here's someone that doesn't watch, wasn't keeping up with the news, who's everywhere at that time, the Green River Killer. And Ridgway was, doing some things that were, they were just so blatant, but they just couldn't. The task force, it took them a while. And so it was in the news like another body every other day, and some were found in I think at least groups of 2. And, when they finally caught him, she didn't believe it, at all. They've got the wrong man. Took her all the way through the court when she heard him confess. And then you could just see the pain in her eyes as she was speaking and talking to the fact that she was totally tricked. She was in love with the idea that he presented her with, but that wasn't the real Gary Ridgway. And, I don't think split personalities is a term that fits, but a chameleon is able to basically put on different hats. They can be what you need them to be. And Gary Ridgway is one that you got to remember. This dude used his own son, a picture of his son. He'd have that in his wallet, ready for a police officer to see if pulled over, so that they would not find him, sinister. If he's got a picture of his little boy, and So he was well thought out in his plan to have this, idyllic type family to cover for what he was really wanting to do, which was murder. But I knew I was going to do that because I know a lot about the Gary Ridgway one. Linda Bergstrom, she was the wife of James Berger, and he was a serial rapist. So it's not, he was not a killer, but man, he was well on his way. And I found that Catherine Casey, The Evil Beside Her, it's a book. I found it to be really interesting. And, there's a movie, The Stranger Beside Her. There was a TV series, The Devil You Know, Stalking Evil. And it's just this one, and I'll put all these sources in the description so you guys can go and research them for yourselves. But Evil Beside Her. Imagine being married to a dangerous psychopath who stalks and attacks women, and then imagine that you tell the police and they don't believe you. That's the story behind The Rapist's Wife. When Linda first met James, he seemed the perfect mate. They were both Catholic, wanted children and a family. He was shy and had a steady job in a print factory in Houston. Shortly after he left to join the Navy in Washington State, they married. At first, their lives seemed idyllic, but soon her quiet, gentle husband began acting out bizarre fantasies on her. What she didn't know was that during his long evening runs, he was stalking. So, like going out for a jog, he was stalking other women, breaking into their homes, brandishing a gun or a knife. Sometimes he tied them to their beds and raped them. For 3 years, Linda Bergstrom lived with a dangerous psychopath. She tried to escape him. She couldn't get away. She called police, but they did nothing, even after she found his rape kit, duct tape, handcuffs, and a ski mask. It took all of her determination to fight to bring her husband to justice, knowing that every moment she lived with him, she and her daughter were in grave danger. This is him, and this is her. It was a really good book. She just literally, he had a good reputation, here he is in the Navy, and they just refused to take her seriously. And so this is kind of a different spin on she started to see the signs. He's acting out these fantasies, living on base, and these rapes happening in a jog from their home. She started to put 2 and 2 together, and I think that her story has a lot of significance for when you spot a serial offender in advance or before they are caught. And so I wanted to try to give different perspectives that we could look into. But yeah, this guy, I think he was up for parole. I don't go to my P.O. box as often as I should. I finally made it over there this past weekend, and to my dismay, I discovered a letter from Texas Department of Criminal Justice dated March 9th. The subject, James Edward Bergstrom, the rapist in my book, Evil Beside Her. The bad news, Bergstrom is up for parole. Although the jury handed down 4 99-year sentences, it shouldn't have been a shocker. Bergstrom was eligible a couple of years ago. At that time, I went on Montel Williams and did a bunch of radio interviews. This is the author of the book that spoke with his wife, protesting his release. I don't usually do this with the folks I write about. Once they serve their time, if the parole board decides to let them out, I don't try to keep them in. Bergstrom is an exception. Why? Well, let me tell you something about him. He started out as a teenager molesting a little girl. As an adult, he was a peeping Tom, sulking around windows, looking in on women, hoping to see them undress. From there, Bergstrom began breaking and entering, figuring out how to get into the houses. When he attacked his first intended victim and she fought back, he ran away. Still, Bergstrom was determined. Stung by his failure, he began planning, thinking, watching, deciding and the best way to subdue a victim, how to keep from getting caught. When he couldn't accomplish his goal by sheer physical force and intimidation, James Bergstrom began carrying a knife and then a gun. So to see the evolution of him, like adapting to and trying to perfect his evil doings. Once he had a weapon, he was in control. He tied his victims up, sometimes for hours, while he stayed in their homes, raping them. He psychologically tormented them, talking like they were friends, like they were willingly with him. It was demented, and he was obsessed. Day and night, all waking hours, James Bergstrom fantasized about stalking and raping women. Over a period of 2 years in Houston, he has admitted attacking 35 women and raping 5. He told me that they wanted him as much as he wanted them, insisting some of them enjoyed it. He threatened them with guns and knives and told his last victim he'd kill her if she fought back. The bottom line is that James Bergstrom is a very, very sick man, and he belongs in prison forever. I have no doubt that he will attack more women, claim more victims if he's ever released. So I'm asking all of you, no matter where you live, just help to keep James Bergstrom in prison where he belongs. It's easy. It doesn't matter where in the world you live. It's as easy as sending an email. I thought that was pretty telling into the sick mind of this man. And if out, he's fully going to offend again. There's no question about it. Projected release date of March 27th, 2091. But yet he's up for parole. And he has been, his parole eligibility was started in 2007. This is what I'm talking about with everybody wants a jury trial. No, you don't. And this right here is exactly why. You know, when a alleged perpetrator pleads guilty, they do not have the right to appeal. Sometimes they can appeal different aspects like sentencing, but they cannot appeal their own confession, their own statements. It's what Dennis Rader did. It's what Gary Ridgway did. It's what Bergstrom did. Not Bergstrom, but, others did that, and they can appeal, and there's nothing for those victims' families to have to go through, But in cases like this, can you imagine, you are one of his rape victims still trying to live your life after being terrorized by this man who goes around telling people that you asked for it. And that you enjoyed it, being raped and held at knife or gunpoint, and someone breaking into your home, like you asked for it. And then they're going to let him out at any time when he's been given sentences such as he was. I cannot imagine what that is like for his wife and for the victims and the victims' families, because when there's a victim in the family, it doesn't just affect, the nuclear family. It literally affects generations. It changes who you are, and therefore you act and react differently when you have your children, and those children begat. And so a lot of this, and I learned a lot about this with the Shannon Paul case, and how that her murder affected the lives and the outcomes of the people that knew her and loved her and lived by her, not just their individual life, but their children's life, and then some their children's life, you know. And like, I think that's why it's important to try to put as much information out there. Not that I want to have some kind of, you know, it's not a fascination. It's not a fetish of any type with wanting to hear all of the gory details and what these serial killers and offenders did. It's more about why and how can we prevent it. And, you know, just think if Dennis Rader's family had been a little bit more aware of like the signs. I love that show. It's on the ID channel, and it's I think it's called Murder in My Family. And they're sitting there and they're telling about their loved one that was just like everything that was just normal, you know. And then there's a pause, and across the screen it says, and then there were signs. And then it goes into the little things that, looking back on them, they're like, okay, you know, putting all of these little signs together, these little seepages of who they are, you know, versus who I knew them to be, who they presented themselves to be. And so of course there are signs. And I think that society, you know, like in order to prevent something, you have to have like a causation and you know, what will you do? And so that's the part that I really want to have, you know, discussions on. And again, you know, back to Delphi with Richard Allen's wife and family, you know. I'm a mother, and I'll tell you this, I don't give two forks who doesn't like it. If my child, one of my girls, ended up being a serial killer, I will be in the front row behind them. That's my child. I don't, that's my perspective on it. You know, there is not, my love for them is unconditional. Does that mean that I am going to cover for them if there's some sadistic, like, serial killer? No, not necessarily. But I don't automatically go to, no way would I ever, you know, I would turn them into the authorities immediately. I can't say that. I think that is a situational thing. And I knew the moment my child was born that I didn't know what love was prior to her birth. I had no idea. And, but love for a child, I don't understand how a parent's love could be conditional. I do understand how your partner, you love them conditionally because it's healthy. But a child, no, there's nothing that's going to change that love. Do you not like what they did? Do you hate what they did? Absolutely. But by God, I'll be sitting right there, you know, and all the people, like, you know, it's just disappointing when you see people, you know, reacting to the fact that, like, his mother is in court. Of course she is. That's her son, you know, like, he did something heinous, or he is alleged to have done something heinous, absolutely wretched, just the worst of the worst, you know, to two teen girls, like, just absolutely sadistic and sick. But that's his mother. And we don't know, that's his wife. You know, they've been married since high school. It's just little things like that. It's just like, be aware, you know, and really try to put yourself in their shoes. This case has not been adjudicated yet. It's not over. Would you just immediately be like, cut that person off, not believe a word they say they're saying they're innocent. You know them, you have a history with them. Maybe you haven't wanted to really sit down and dig deep and have insight into those signs. Maybe you're not ready for that emotionally, and you are still holding on to that tiniest sliver of hope that they have been wrongfully accused. I think there's grace that should be had there. But, you know, so far, he's not been released. So that is excellent news. Excellent. I think this was the parole review, or his wife. I think she's spoke at it. Ooh, let's see when his next parole review date is. October of 2027. So he just had one last year, denied. The record indicates that the offender has repeatedly committed criminal episodes that indicate a predisposition to commit criminal acts upon release. The record indicates the instant offense has elements of brutality, violence, assaultive behavior, or conscious selection of victim's vulnerability, indicating a conscious disregard for the lives, safety, or property of others, such that the offender poses a continuing threat to public safety. You got to remember, this is a guy that's wife was not being, she started out being fooled by him and the persona that she married, the idea of him that she married. But she could not ignore what was blatantly right in her face, and she tried to do something about it. But because he was a chameleon, he blended in so well, and until they start to unravel, because they always do unravel at some point. No one believed her. They thought that she was a vindictive, in a vindictive like separation, and that she was making this all up to keep, to make him look bad, and to not give him, I think they had like a daughter, and this is why she wanted to protect her child. She just knew that this is who he was. She had the proof, and that the court systems and the law enforcement, they just, she's just, there's a term for it, parental alienation. And that was not what's happening at all. And she ended up being right. And fortunately, they obviously caught him, but yeah, can you imagine living with a rapist, trying to leave a rapist, and a serial offender here, and a just brutal, calculating man, and no one believes you. But yet we see so often the judging of the parental alienation, and automatically like looking at it through a lens of, okay, but what if he is manipulating and really good at blending in and coming off as something that he is not, and then you try to shed light on that, and you're not believed because you're just trying to be vindictive. Like I see that so many times, but I also see the flip side of that. So it's a slippery slope, and the court systems, the judges, and especially like guardian ad litems, they have to really, really try to be non-bias and only in the corner of the child. And I can imagine that that would be very difficult to weed out the fakers and the liars that are making this stuff up, because that happens all the time, especially, and it seems like a lot of women do it. And they should stop, because, well, most people are too selfish to think about, or let alone care of the stigma that you are now attaching with women in divorce situations, men in divorce situations, when you are falsifying documents and you are manipulating the court system, the lawyers and the guardian ad litems, and you're coaching your child and it's not caught by the forensic psychologists. They don't think about the fact that the next family that comes along, there's already going to be a prejudice, and they have really tough jobs. Let's leave it at that. Yeah, so I think those are going to be the two that we cover tonight. I was going to can't remember which one it is. Pull this up so that you could see who we covered. This is Bergstrom, and this is Gillis right here. So we've knocked these two out most of the way. I really encourage you to go and like watch these documentaries, because that's like where you're, obviously I can't play a documentary on here, like, we'll get shut down immediately, but watching these and really like listening and tuning into the things that we're talking about on tonight's live and the series to come, because when you can see their emotive, body, not, like body language, I guess, and the words as they say them, and, looking in their eyes and judging for yourself and coming to conclusions on your own, that's a discussion that we can have, and I definitely recommend the book and the, on Bergstrom. It's just crazy. And the interviews with Bergstrom's wife and Gillis's live-in girlfriend. But that is all that we're going to cover tonight. To say some goodbyes. Oh, thank you, Lighting the Way Home, for sharing. Thank you, James. I appreciate that. And charging are definitely interesting. Yeah. Oh, hey, Anna. Good to see you. The Delphi crime would be a first attack. On the other hand, all of the pieces don't fit for me for RA as a perpetrator. Yeah, like, we just don't know. We don't know all that we're gonna know in probably 4 or 5 years. Let's just be real. This is going to be drug out forever. And it's actually common, maybe not 4 years, but a couple years to 3 years to see a case adjudicated to the conclusion and sentencing, unless constitutionally, unless the defendant asks for a speedy trial, which the state has to do within 90 days upon the request. Those are the only ones that are quickly adjudicated. The other ones, the defense will drag this out for as long as they can. And you're still accruing time towards your sentence, so You know, I think that it is telling that Richard Allen did not press his defense once they received the discovery, and then they delayed the, I believe it is a meaningful bond hearing, what they have requested, which a defendant has a right, even though this Indiana is a no bond state, upon request from the defendant, if the state, so this is the law that changed, legislation on this changed, I want to say in like 2017, but I might be getting that confused with DNA being taken from felons. But anyway, it used to be the burden of proof was on the defendant to prove that there was a likelihood that he would be found innocent by a jury of his peers. Therefore, he should be let out, whether conditioned or unconditioned, until the case is properly adjudicated. And but when the legislation changed, now it is upon the state to prove. It's not beyond reasonable doubt. It is with like that I don't know the percentage, but that at trial, the defendant is more than likely to be found guilty of the crimes that he has been indicted on. And that's kind of a sticky situation for prosecutors, I will say, because if it is deemed to be public, which most are, I'm not sure that this one is, but most are, the state is giving away their strategy, their case, their factual, circumstantial, every type of, they have to present that in court before the case goes to trial. And because of media and, and like court reporters and such, oftentimes they don't want to do that. So they are willing to set a bond, hopefully with condition, for offenders that request this through their defense team. It's a good strategy, and from here on out, that's all we are. It's strategy, and sometimes the truth gets lost in the shuffle, unfortunately, because the truth is about what can be proved in a court of law. And the things that the jury will not have to strike, they won't be able to consider it in their decision, or they will never see, because the defense will be getting it thrown out. And things on the flip side of that the state will get suppressed, that the jury will never hear, or that they will have to strike and won't be able to use during their decision. Those are the kind of things that, like, imagine if you get a half a picture and you have to decide whether someone is going to death row or they're free. That is a chasm that is just, that's wide, and that pressure of that, wow. And here you are thinking, well, most jurors that are selected aren't thinking about that. Like, I know, but I read appeals all the time. So I know that things get, I think the jury's not going to hear about that. Just little things like that. And imagine after what jurors go through when they're released from their duty, and then they are able to watch, listen, and read, and they find out that there were 12 aggravating factors that were suppressed, or that there were 12 mitigating factors that were suppressed. Think about that. It's something. Hey, Divided Kingdom. that get no notice are the ones who are in gangs. Yeah. Yeah, that's a, that's a tough one because they're not even considered in the statistics for serial offenders. But they are. But there's like a whole category. Hey Jamie. It's just another day. I like that name. I predict AG will commit a crime in Washington very soon. It's a matter of time. Like I always say, I am not a psychic, but when a individual has a clear pattern of behavior, especially when that individual likes to tell you to stop looking at their past and judge them on the interaction that you have with them in the present, that's a manipulation sentence right there. That sentence is, you just type that into Google and put psychology today, and you will see that I'm not wrong. Yeah. So there is a past behavior predicts future behavior until there is a true turnaround, a true change that takes work, and there should be fruits of that work. And when there's not, then you really have to reevaluate your stance on that individual and the safety of yourself and the ones around you when you decide to interact with them or decide to get away. It's not rocket science. It's just Psych 101, but think about, Manson. I mean, the manipulation and the like, I don't know. He's a touchy one for me because it's like, I just don't know. I've never really been interested in him, but like cult leaders, the Jim Jones is out there, that are a charismatic psychopaths that are able to, they're so slick. They could tell you that the sky is not blue, and they could have convincing parts, even though you're looking at it and you're like, man, it looks so blue. But they could come up with some long made up diatribe to convince you that the sky is really green, and they're believable because they use a certain tactic to get you to believe them. I was just checking out a website earlier and it's full of them. When like you're looking at a website and it's telling you what you want and repeatedly, that's a manipulation tactic. And then the flip side of that is the shaming you into, oh, well, you're just not a man. You're not a real man. You don't want to make money. You don't want to learn. You just want to be a lazy POS. So that's why you're not going to sign up. And so now you're manipulating a different type of mindset. And then you're manipulating the other type of mindset with the, you want this. This is what you've been waiting for. We're here for you, But oh, sorry, it's my daughter. I've got to go. So I appreciate everyone. Hey, Frank. Hope you're doing good. Psychosocial. Hey, Ray. Good to see you. And thank you so much, Lighting the Way Home, for dropping links. You guys are great. Hopefully I'll see you in a couple days. I don't know. It's going to be a tough one to go live, but I was hoping to do one out in Denver, but we shall see. All right. Have a good night. Hey, Mary.